I'd like to begin today lighting the candle, and we'll have the candle be a reminder of all those who've lost their lives during the times of COVID to the disease, the virus, directly, and then all those people whose lives, physical health, spiritual health, mental health have been so disrupted and disordered. A member of our congregation, his incarceration was directly related to the impact of COVID. Amen. So the coronavirus can be thought of in so many different ways. I'm thinking of it today in the context of disorder. That it took routines and patterns that we had and has completely shaken them up, turned them around, set them on their head. 4 days ago, on Saturday, I talked about a series of teachings that Richard Rohr has been putting out that talk about the structure of life, if you remember, as sort of being ordered in a certain way. And that as we grow and live and mature over the course of our life, at any age, that there's this sequence and this process of order and then disorder to find a reordering. Some people talk about it as an orientation, a disorientation, and then a reorientation in life. So we've all been forced into this period of disorder, and it's shown up in all of our lives. And perhaps some reorientation has fallen into place, or maybe it fell into place at the beginning of March. The pattern sticks with us. In a religious context, institutional, perhaps religious context, one of the ways that Rohr was talking about, Richard Rohr was talking about this dynamic unfolding, relates to how organizations tend to locate, that's the best word, tend to locate significance and meaning in physical spaces. So for the religious community, it was the temple. For the Jewish community originally. And the temple became this central place where people had to go in order to have a spiritual experience. In the Christian tradition, as a continuation in many ways of the Jewish tradition, there was similarly this location of meaning and purpose in buildings. The church that I pastor was founded in 1889. Not too many years after that, multiple cornerstones were set in the building, made of granite from just up the hill in Graniteville, and the rest became history. The creation of a space where people could gather to worship, to celebrate God's love and presence among them in a space. And so here we are, months later. Our building, the space is still closed, So, part of what was order for us, and maybe for many of you in, all these different ways, whether it's specifically related to a religious building or just the order of life, that structure, gets disordered. There's a passage in the book of First Peter that says, "Come to him." It's talking about Jesus in a sort of a both cosmic and generally religious way. "Come to him, a living stone, though rejected by mortals, yet chosen and precious in God's sight." Like living stones, let yourselves be built into a spiritual house, a holy priesthood to offer spiritual sacrifices. Let yourself be built into a living house. So if the order of those things that once were, has crumbled away, a house, held together perhaps by stone and mortar, the binding agent, if that disintegrates or becomes disordered, there's this additional level, a separate level, where we might become living stones, part of this household that's held together not by mortar, but it's held together by love, by compassion, by grace. So as one thing crumbles, another thing becomes more solid. Order, disorder, reorder. Let me bring us into a little meditation on this. So since we all have them, I'll invite us to think of just one experience, one part of our life where things were ordered in one way before COVID and then have become disordered. And it might be, a routine you had, like going to a building, it might have been a religious community, it might have been a gym, an educational institution, even a store. Like a routine that was part of an order that became disordered. And as we take a few breaths, what was the nature of the disorder for you? What did it feel like, or does it feel like? What do you notice about the effect of the disorder in your body, your thinking, your feeling? And have you experienced some reordering, and what does that look like, feel like, seem like to you these days? And is that experience, does it somehow give you an experience of the holy, of God with you? perhaps we don't rely on brick and mortar spaces in the same way, but perhaps there's some experience of us being living stones, being built into a spiritual house, a holy priesthood. You are a chosen race, a royal priesthood, a holy nation, God's own people. The passage goes on to say, living out God's love right where we're planted, in the midst of the disorder. May God hold and guide and keep each of you.